Let's imagine a simple economy that only produces hamburgers. The economy has the resources and technology to produce 100 burgers. Further, there is $500 in the money supply. For the sake of an easy example, we are assuming the velocity of money is 1, so each of the $500 only gets spent once. That means our $500 of total spending is divided among 100 total burgers. So the price of each burger is $5. And the $5 paid for each burger will be divided up amongst all the contributors. I have it split up this way: $1 per burger to the workers, $1.50 to the land and natural resources used, $2 to the capital needed to make the burger, leaving 50 cents for the entrepreneur who owns the business to take as profit. The $5 could be split up any which way, but this is how I did it for our example. Now, the amount of money paid isn't really what's important here. What is important is how much you can buy with that money. In our example economy, the only thing there is to buy is hamburgers. The workers making $1 per hamburger will get $100 total after all 100 burgers are sold. That means collectively, the workers can afford to buy 20 burgers with that $100 of income. Similarly, with the $150 total paid to the resource owners after selling all 100 burgers, they can buy 30 burgers. The capital owners have $200, so they can afford 40 burgers, and the owners of the business can buy 10 burgers with all their profits. These are their real incomes. They describe how much a person can afford. So now let's say there is a reduction in the money supply because people withdraw their money from banks, and the reduction in lending reduces the money multiplier and the money supply. Now there is $400 in the money supply. Here is what should happen. The price of the burgers has to fall to $4 each. We still have the same number of patties and buns and pickles and cheese, so we can still make 100 burgers. It doesn't matter that there's less money in circulation. That doesn't change the number of resources we have. However, with a lower price paid for burgers, the payments made to each factor of production have to come down too. The deflation doesn't just impact the price level of the burgers, it also shows up in people's paychecks. Workers get 80 cents per burger. Resource owners get $1.20 now. Capital owners get $1.60, and the owners get 40 cents. But look, they can still afford the same number of burgers as before. Workers get $80 total, which is enough to still buy 20 burgers, now that they're only $4 a piece instead of $5. Sure, the price tags changed, the paychecks changed, and the economy went through some deflation, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect what the economy produces, how it produces it, or who gets it. The real economy is still the same. But what happens if the prices didn't change? What if the money supply went down to $400, but the burgers still cost $5 and everyone was still paid the same? Well, even though we have the resources to produce 100 burgers, we don't have the money to afford them anymore. The most this economy could buy is 80 burgers. And that means the number of burgers everyone is getting has to come down too. They can't end up buying more burgers than are being produced. And the drops here are driven by resources going unused. In this economy, 20% of our resources are not being used, which would mean that we have 20% unemployment rate here. And our economy has sunk into a horrible recession. If prices and wages are sticky, meaning they don't change, they're stuck in place, then the reduction in the total amount of spending on our economy's total demand, will result in a severe contraction in output. But why would this happen? Why don't prices adjust? Isn't this what the invisible hand is there to do? The forces of supply and demand are supposed to guide these prices and wages to their appropriate equilibrium, where everything works out just fine. But remember, by the time the Depression happened, the economy didn't work that way anymore. It was no longer a collection of tiny household firms adding value in small stages across a long chain of production orchestrated by the invisible hand of the market. Now production was dominated by multi-unit enterprises, which consolidated those many stages of production under one roof. These large firms traded some cost efficiency for better administrative coordination. They gave up the efficiency of the price system in order to streamline production processes, and the trade-off was good for the bottom line. Having fewer large firms rather than many small firms reduced competitive pressures, and bigger profit margins meant that they could survive even if they didn't adjust prices. They could get away with keeping things stuck in place for a while without worrying about the forces of competition sweeping them out of the economy immediately due to the slightest bit of inefficiency. And remember too, with the rise of the big firm came the rise of labor unions, which organized workers and allowed them to bargain for higher wages at the expense of even more inefficiency. Unions, more than firms, had a stake in trying to keep wages from dropping in the face of deflation. It was John Maynard Keynes's colleague and close friend, the economist Joan Robinson, who pioneered this work on imperfect competition. 3 years before Keynes published his general theory, she published The Economics of Imperfect Competition, outlining how wages could get stuck, and this was a major influence on Keynes. When demand falls throughout the economy, it reduces the demand firms have for labor. A reduction in demand means it shifts to the left, and the pressures of competition are supposed to push the market to a new equilibrium at a lower wage. But frictions in the economy due to large firms and labor unions, each with market power, keep the wage level stuck in place. At this higher wage, the quantity of labor demanded falls far short of the number of workers seeking a job. The surplus in workers manifests in the economy as cyclical unemployment, just as was seen during the Great Depression. Where the classical school of thought said widespread involuntary unemployment could not last long because markets were self-correcting, Keynes and Joan Robinson were building an entirely new framework for the economy which showed, predicted even, that such unemployment could and would happen. But the experience also showed that prices were not as sticky as claimed. When the money supply drops, as it did in our example, experience showed that the price level would drop right along with it. But the payments made to some factors of production wouldn't, and the burden of deflation would fall on profits, which would sink. If the owner of this business is losing money on every burger, burger production doesn't fall just a little, it falls all the way. The firm shuts down, and everyone involved ends up unemployed. During the Great Depression, the money supply fell by 25 to 30%, and the price level, here corresponding to the price of the hamburger, fell by almost 25%, just like the classical school would have predicted. But wages only fell by 11 to 17%, far short of where the predictions of Say's law, self-correcting markets, and the quantity theory of money would make. Indeed, something in the economy was stuck, and it was causing a great deal of trouble with no obvious way out.